Welcome back to Tom's World of Marketing. I'm Tom Foster, and today I'm sitting down with someone who's been called a marketer who happens to be a lawyer. And after you hear his story, you'll understand why that description fits perfectly. Peter Hoppenfeld has spent over 4 decades at the intersection of law and direct marketing. He's the go-to attorney for some of the biggest names in the industry. We're talking Frank Kern, Ryan Lee, Brian Kurtz. Brian Kurtz is how we met. We were at the Titans Mastermind meeting and dinner, and you and I sat together at dinner, and it was a lovely time, and that's how we got to know each other.
Absolutely.
All right, and then Marie Forleo, Jim Quick, and dozens more. If you've ever bought a course, attended a seminar, or followed a thought leader in the health, wellness, or personal development space, there's a good chance Peter has had his hands on the legal work behind it. But here's what makes Peter particularly relevant to our audience. He's built his practice representing professionals who do exactly what you do. They market their expertise. Whether it's health and wellness celebrities, functional medicine practitioners, or authors and trainers, Peter understands what it takes to build a practice that attracts clients while staying compliant with the FTC, FDA, and privacy regulations. He also served as general counsel to RFMW Limited, helping taking that company from startup to a $140 million enterprise that ultimately sold to Berkshire Hathaway. So he knows what growth looks like from the inside. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Tom. So where do we begin?
Well, I got a question for you. You've been called a marketer who happens to be a lawyer. How did you develop that dual expertise, and why do you think that combination has been so valuable to your clients?
So many moons ago, going back about 35 years ago, I was a franchise lawyer. And I got called upon to do a project out at the Tony Robbins organization. I'm long since forgotten in his organization, but I knew nothing about either personal development training programs or direct response marketing. I knew nothing about it. And it's kind of like serendipity. One of their other lawyers just knew that I was a guy with documents that said Federal Trade Commission on them. So they said, are you an FTC expert? And I had 3 kids and a mortgage. And I said, yeah, I'm an FTC expert.
And, right, exactly.
The next thing I knew, they introduced me, and I can share his name because he's long deceased, to a guy named Charles Givens. And Charles Givens, back in the day, this is 1990, pre-internet. We just started using fax machines. This is a guy using infomercials, driving people to live events to sell programs about personal development. He had a book called Wealth Without Risk, and he was the celebrity guru on the Today Show.
Yeah.
I flew out to Altamont Springs, Florida, to learn about a problem he had with a trade regulation rule. And they said, can you help us? And I did some work, and I came up with a defensible strategy that saved him about $250,000 a week. And I presented it to him. The day that Hurricane Andrew hit Miami, I flew to Orlando. Why? I had 3 kids and a mortgage.
Yeah, good for you, man.
They engaged me to work on this problem, which I did. And I saw all this opportunity. He had 3 or 4 different programs. He had infomercials, 3 or 4 different infomercials on late night TV, running live events, selling programs. And I realized that if I didn't learn how the sales were being made, I was just a lawyer saying no. And if I was a lawyer saying no, I was useless. But if I was a lawyer saying, gee, we could change things to make you more compliant, then I had something going. And that was the beginning. I started understanding the sales process. As the years went by, I started reading advertising copy. I read copy every day, okay? As the technology changed and marketing changed, I just added tools to my tool belt. So I represented the earlier influencers who were using the internet to sell things. Because Tom, before 2008, everything was free, right?
Right.
So as the technology changed, I learned how modern sales funnels developed. So I started saying to my clients, strategy first, lawyering second. Strategy first, lawyering second. And I was able to speak my clients' language. I was able to talk about marketing concepts. I was able to talk about various marketing platforms, about how they worked, about lead flow, how you have a lead generation tool and you make a sale. And that has served me well. So rather, I'm also, as a boutique practice, clients will say to me, well, can you review this? How compliant am I? If you go to a big firm, their default is to say, no, you're not compliant. I, through 35, 40 years of experience, all the time are asked to review a sales copy or a web page. And I'll say to them, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 100% compliant, no one is 100% compliant. If you were, you'd sell nothing. One,
right.
One, you're a cowboy. You just want to make a quick sale and you want to leave town. Most of my clients, all of my clients, have different risk tolerances, and I can connect to their risk tolerance and say, look, from what I'm seeing, you're at a 6. And to get you to a 7.5 or 8, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And I've been doing that for 30 years.
That's excellent. That's exactly why you and I have a meeting next week to talk about how I can hire you for me, because I have that issue exactly, because I work with lawyers and doctors. So I got HIPAA, HIPAA to worry about.
I've done a lot of work with health and wellness practitioners. And that world is being more and more difficult to navigate, and it's got its own challenges. The marketing world and the dynamics of what works change, like a blink of the eye. The lawyering, for me, is the easy part. It's the personality part and the motivation part I have to understand.
Yeah.
I have to understand where they are and where they want to get to. So if I'm doing M&A work, I'm doing collaborative work between two different clients, or not clients, two different parties. It's really understanding that dynamic that you only can really, there's a reason, Tom, why they call it a practice.
Right.
My practice is a people practice. It's dynamics, it's negotiating, it's understanding the pulse of what people want to do and how to get them there in the easiest way. It's really simple. It's easier to do a complex deal than it is to get it simple.
Yeah, you got to simplify it.
Right.
And people deal with people. People buy from people. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to get it down to that point. Okay, you've been in this space since the days of direct mail and telemarketing.
Right.
I started at the same time you did. Faxing out to people. Remember the fax? Not many people do. And now you're guiding clients through video sales letters, webinars, and social media launches. What's the biggest shift you've seen in how professionals market their services, and what stayed constant?
The ultimate magic of a sale remains the same. Okay? People are motivated to buy something because of need, of greed, okay? Their button being pushed in a certain way to buy. That's historic. And you and I know Brian Kurtz, and I worked with Brian at Boardroom. The sales process remains the same. It's the tools that have changed. Look, when I started practicing law, there was a memory typewriter, and we had a messenger running around Manhattan. Okay. So, the ultimate dynamic of the person buying there and tapping those impulses has not changed. How you do it is different. The tools evolve. From my experience, I have clients like Ryan Lee was one of my earliest digital marketing clients, and he was one of the earliest digital marketers. And his philosophy early on was, this is 2008. Let me give you some historical context. 2008.
Thank you.
The banking industry had collapsed. The mortgage industry had collapsed, okay? We were in a deep recession. And all of those seminar companies whose model was to get people in a hotel room and sell them as much as they could, as quickly as they could, ended. People had no credit, okay? Ryan comes along and he has information. Now, this is the internet, but the internet was free. His philosophy was, I have valuable information to sell, but I have to earn my audience trust and respect. So I'm going to get them to become loyal to me. I'm going to share information for free. And then I'm going to test the water. And I'm not going to sell a $5,000 course. I'm going to sell a $49 course. And when they like that, then I'll put them on a $29 a month. Okay? So the world had flipped in terms of marketing. And then as the years went by and people developed new tools, John Benson created the video sales letter. How? Because he tried it, he used it, and then he taught other people how to do it. So a lot of successful marketers become how-to marketers.
Right.
Okay? I represented Pedro Adeo. He created challenges. I represented, name is slipping my mind, the guy who did quizzes. Okay? They did that themselves. It worked, so they taught other people how to do it. That's historically what happens. And I've represented those people. So the clients of mine that have become the most successful are the ones who take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from there in a genuine way to create a genuine message that taps the consumer's buttons to buy. So it's an evolution. Is there formulaic marketing? Do I work with clients who do the same old stuff the same old way? Yes. Can it be successful? Yeah, but it could be better. So the clients that really scale are the ones that have a unique approach to the marketplace because they've learned from observing. Where do I fit in? Each of those steps require some lawyering in terms of paper trailing the companies. I have a lot of clients who jumped out into success without having the basic foundation ever created. So we want to control their corporate governance, their employees, their contractors, their IP. They have relationships with other vendors, and many of them are kids, who never had a bank account. They wanted to pay a mortgage, they did a launch. No, I'm not kidding. But then there are, basic intercompany things that need to be done, let alone reviewing material for compliance and trade regulation rules. So how has it changed? It's much faster, it's higher volume. People can test overnight what works and what doesn't. Their analytics are much greater and stronger. They can see trends. I can see trends.
And now we've got AI, right?
And then the AI, yes, we have AI, which I can debate with you for a whole nother hour. But it's also made it a lot faster in terms of testing the results of what you're selling. Look, a lot of my job, because I do review copy, is, it's not what you say, it's what people hear. So I become my client's earpiece. I also try to help my clients avoid the clunker, meaning you might have copy that works from a sales point of view, but if you're up against that viewer clicking the red button and saying goodbye, I'm done. Okay. So, but if you have one word that just stands out and is a clunker, they're gone. So many times I'm reading copy and I say, that word doesn't work in this copy. Find it, wow. It's a negative word. The example I give, I used to do a lot of speaking. If you went to a Bruce Springsteen concert, of which I'm a big fan, and Roy Bittan, his pianist, hit a bad note in the middle of a song, when you walked out of the arena, what would you talk to your friend about? Gee, I remember, did you hear Roy Bittan hit that note? Same thing with advertising copy. You hit a bad note, you've lost your audience.
Yeah, it's 100%. Okay. A lot of attorneys and medical practitioners worry that compliance requirements, FTC guidelines, FDA rules, privacy regulations will limit their marketing. How do you help clients see compliance as a competitive advantage rather than a restriction?
Let me start by saying a lot of the rules are intended to protect the public's health, okay? I've had a lot of clients, doctors, for example, who want to have a greater reach geographically and decide to become health coaches. And I say bullshit to them. We have licensing protocols because licensing is on a state-by-state basis. you are stuck with your geography. Okay, so that's number one, and there's a reason for it, and there's a good reason for it. There's a good reason for the FTC to say do not make disease claims when you're selling supplements. Okay, does it make it more difficult? Does it require you to be maybe a little bit more forthcoming? Yes. Is that a bad thing? No. In terms of the professionals themselves, there's this push and pull that happens when professionals start reading and studying marketing, and they get enamored by the marketing that's acceptable for a consumer product and say, why can't I do that in my professional practice? Well, you have ethical guidelines, you've got other constraints on your license, and you can't advertise medical services like you would advertise soda, like you would advertise, a vitamin. Different standards. Is it a bad thing? It could be frustrating to the professional when they're told that you can't generate leads in the way that other marketers do because you're not a marketer. You're at the forefront of professional.
Yeah. And, this is in all industries, in the
Right.
financial industry, they're really regulated, right? Like
Guess
they
what?
can't.
They know the rules. They live by the rules. Okay. The last thing you want is to have that headline.
Right. But everybody's in the same boat, right?
Exactly.
So, you don't want to get busted for doing things that you're not supposed to do.
I have I work with a lot of financial publishers. And a CEO of a client of mine said to me, you want to avoid pre-snap penalties, to use a football phrase. Don't make the simple mistakes. Know the rules of your game.
Yeah. And all your competitors are in the same boat, so it's no
Exactly.
big deal. So you just got to be smarter. You got to be smart in how you market.
Listen, there's no shortcut to smart, and the most successful.
Well, I would say hiring you would be a shortcut to smart.
Well, I'm gonna make you work at it, Tom. Look, the one element of marketing that has worked 50 years ago and works today is the trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Good trusted advisor who is honest, who's relatable, and is unwavering in their integrity is the best spokesperson, period.
You're right, 100%. Okay. You represent many leaders in functional medicine, integrative health, and wellness. What unique challenges do practitioners in these fields face when marketing their services, and what should medical practices learn from how these thought leaders build their brands?
So I'm gonna answer this in a different way. The leaders I've represented, the true visionaries, understand their duties and obligations to the functional medicine, integrative medicine movement, and are very serious and learn and educated and know what their credentials are, and they understand the guardrails. The challenge in that area of my practice is more the newbies, the fans, the people who want to be like so-and-so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they want to create this training program and that certification program and this protocol to deal with this issue. And in some ways, I'm very selective because I think they can be dangerous to others because they're really not equipped to make those, to carry through and fulfill in a safe way those protocols. And they could be damaging, in fact, to that health and wellness movement. I represent a lot of health coaches and actually several health coaching organizations. And there's even like a dichotomy in those companies over whether does a health coach do blood tests. I have one client who's very established, says a coach coaches, doesn't review blood tests. I have another well-established person in the field who says, of course they do. So there's this dichotomy about what's right and what's wrong. Where they still remain the same is the integrity of their message and of their brand. Where I have drawn the line, and I'm very cautious, is the newbies who are just trying to be like them without the substance.
Right, but as you said, you got to be an honest broker, right? You got to be an honest broker.
You do have to be an honest broker, but I also feel a duty, and maybe it's having done this so long. I have a talent, and I have limited time of my day, and I pick and choose at many times where I feel like the person will do good from my advice.
Yeah. Speaking of, you helped take RFMW from startup to 140 million and a sale to Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes.
What did you learn about building enterprise value during that journey that applies to professional service firms like law practices and medical practices?
I don't think that exercise has anything to do with the sale of anything else. But that company was just a prime example of hard work, great expertise, and patience. It's a Silicon Valley company with the guts of Wi-Fi. A lot of the applications of semiconductors, power transistors relate to military. There was just methodical growth, methodical high levels of service and knowledge of the industry. And that company was totally self-funded and expanded from the US to the UK to the EU to Japan to China to Israel to the Middle East without one extra dollar of either debt or investors.
Wow.
It grew, and ultimately the sale was what was good for all parties. The letter of intent itself took a year to put together. The lesson for me, the takeaway there is and that was 15 years. The lesson was patience and fortitude. I tell clients, don't watch Shark Tank. Don't watch it. It's not the real world. So,
right.
Lawyers and doctors, if you view your practices having a value of a certain multiple of EBITDA, just erase that from your mind. There is no standard multiple of EBITDA for most businesses. Sorry. End of story. Especially if you are a practice that relies on your personality or you. I have a very vibrant practice. It's unsaleable. I know it. Okay? I'm not deluding myself. I know what it is. People want me. A business is worth what a party is willing to pay for it and what you're willing to sell it for. Okay?
Interesting.
And clients say to me, well, what's the standard multiple for my company? And I look at them, there is no standard multiple. And I have clients that get to $1 million. That's great. You have a $1 million business. Going from $1 million to $5 million is a whole nother animal. Going from
100%. Don't I know it?
10 is like 10 times as hard.
Yeah.
All right. Going 10 to 50 is just unbelievable because you have to grow and understand when, as a founder, you no longer can manage your own business. You have to be able to relinquish control, bring in good talent, and maybe replace that talent 3 or 4 times to be aligned with where you are in terms of your growth. The ultimate, I tell my clients, have realistic expectations, build a good business, make a good living. Will you have an exit strategy? Can't say. Can't say. Do not give up equity. Do not give up equity. Do not give up equity. Period. Don't reward your first employee, because 10 years from now, he's going to have 3% of your company, and you're not even going to remember what his name was. And you're going to say to your lawyer, why does that guy have 3% of my company? Okay?
Yep.
Don't do it.
That's why
don't become a part, right?
I totally agree with you. That's why I own 100% of my company, and I'm never going to give any of that up.
That's right.
Not for anything.
Your equity is the golden egg. Don't give away the golden egg.
Yep, you're
I don't know if
right.
that answered your question, but
it did. Well, it answered my questions, and it's great advice. I mean, especially for where I am right now. Okay, your CV mentions you work with entrepreneurs who have put their house in order. What does that look like when you first engage with a successful practitioner, and what are the most common gaps you find?
House in order means a strong foundation. Do you have an entity? Do you have organizational documents? Are your employees and your contractors under contract? Have you protected your intellectual property? Do you have trademarks? Have you registered them? Do you use copyright notices effectively? Do you have, if you have a web page, do you have a comprehensive, up-to-date privacy policy in terms of service? Do you have a client agreement for clients to sign when they engage you or they buy your product or service? What does your shopping cart look like? Do you send text messages? Do you use telemarketing? There are rules pertaining to both. Do you use testimonials? If you do, how do you use them? Let's see, what else? Is that good? That's a good start.
That's good. And I'm like thinking when you're saying that, I'm like, check, 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 check for me.
Well, and if you're using testimonials that talk about results, you need to be able to show what the typical result is.
Yeah.
Are you using reviews? How so? Do you put 5 stars next to people's faces? If you do, take them down.
Well, I can't wait to work with you, Peter. Myself.
Well, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. If you'll have me.
I'm sure we'll work it out. I'm glad we can share this with everybody who's listening. Thank you.
Exactly, right? That's everybody that's listening. That's how great this guy is, man. I mean, I just feel like serendipity that I got to sit next to you.
Well, we'll thank Brian Kurtz. It was a really good night.
I know. You're like the rock star of lawyers for a company like mine. Okay. Privacy compliance has become a major part of your practice. For attorneys and medical practices collecting patient and client information, what are the non-negotiables they need to have in place right now?
Well, every lawyer listening knows of their duty of loyalty to their clients and their rules of conflict of interest and confidentiality. That's a no-brainer. Doctors understand HIPAA, although as you and I know, the application of HIPAA is maybe one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Where it's still okay for a doctor where you can fax your medical reports to a fax machine in the middle of a hallway in a doctor's office, and that's okay, but you can't email it. So HIPAA is really antiquated, but important. If you are a practitioner rendering services, your patient's information is private. The other elements of privacy law, though, pertain to having a vibrant privacy policy. If you're doing marketing, you want to make sure that you're having people opt in by giving you your email address, talking about leads, and having a privacy policy that's clear about how you can use their information. If you're really large, you have issues in California, which has a privacy law that requires certain disclosure. If you're marketing in the EU, the GDPR governs your ability to target market overseas. That may not apply to most lawyers. It probably won't apply to independent doctors either, but it does apply to marketers. If you're sending out emails, you need to be cognizant of the can-spam laws and make sure that your emails provide for people to unsubscribe from your list, and you need to abide by that. You need to have a physical address on your email, and you need to maintain a suppression list of people who don't want to hear from you. So if you're ever doing any co-promotion with anyone else, those people who said don't email me should never be emailed to. There's a lot of litigation and shakedowns from class action lawyers in California over the can-spam laws. I hope you're not representing them, but it's the nature of the beast. They're, again, avoiding pre-snap penalties, can-spam, sending out text messages, marketing text messages. People must opt in. You must have a text message policy on your privacy policy. That's how, in a practical day-to-day, where privacy comes in.
Wow, that's good stuff. Okay, you talk about creating marriages and alliances of like-minded businesses. Can you share an example of how you've helped clients with partnerships that accelerated their growth and what makes a partnership work?
Well, let me start by saying I never use the word partnership. Okay, I just don't. Because partnerships, from a pure legal liability point of view, are the most explosive and liability relationships one could have. Okay. So we have collaborations. We may have licensing agreements. I never use the word partnership. As a matter of fact, I have clients that come to me and they keep talking about their partners. And one call in particular, young guys kept talking, this was my partner, that's my partner. I said, listen, I have a rule, don't use the word partner. And they said, fine. I said, I'll tell you what, every time you use the word partner, you owe me $100. And they said, fine. And we finished the call, and a half hour later, the guy texted me, I owe you $300. Anyway, I am back to I said earlier about not giving away equity. Many times clients in marketing clients will work with another company and they work out a deal or arrangement for co-branding or for co-promotion, and they're going to form a company and they're going to have equity. And I pull the reins and say, slow down. You don't need to be, have equity and be shareholders together in an entity to do what you're trying to accomplish. We could do the same thing in a collaboration agreement. It might be, a bilateral license. Typically, what'll happen is I'll have a client that's is a marketing agency or has real strong expertise and talent in-house for creating marketing funnels and messaging and writing. And then there might be someone with an expertise of some methodology, okay? Well, they might have a product, but they can't market their way out of a paper bag. So I created what I call a digital publishing arrangement, where this company will do 1 through 5, this company will do 1 through 4, and there'll be a revenue share. So I actually made a list of like the 20 odd things that have to happen to bring a product to market. And we could divvy up those responsibilities depending on people's expertise. And ultimately they do a revenue share from sales and they make money, but they're not partners and they're not shareholders. The worst, most aggravating client matters I've handled in the last 35 years are the split up of LLCs and partnerships and shareholders and corporations. It's worse than divorces. So why go there? We can get the same thing accomplished in a different way.
Wow. Well, that's great advice for me, because we have a partnership program, right? Where we have lots of partners, but now I'm going to rename that to collaborators.
That's a good idea. But the point is, there are ways. I try to find the simplest path for companies to get to their end game.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate, you explaining it in that way. And your advice is sound. Just don't give up your equity, period. Never. And don't like tease it out there, right?
Correct.
All right. You've worked with the biggest names in direct responses and info marketing. What do the most successful ones, the Frank Kerns, the Ryan Lees, do differently in their marketing that professional service providers could adopt?
Let me just be fair to Frank Kern. I did handle one matter for Frank many years ago. But generally speaking, my most successful direct response clients, regardless of niche, reinvent themselves over and over again. I can't, it's the common occurrence when I see, colleagues and marketing folks like we saw at that dinner last week. And you always say, what happened to so-and-so? He was doing so well, and he fell off the face of the earth.
Right.
It happens more often than not. So longevity is a function of constantly learning and growing and evolving with the times. You can't rest on your laurels.
Yep. All right, this is my last question for you, Peter.
Uh-oh.
If you were advising a law firm owner or medical practice owner who wants to grow through better marketing, what's the first thing you tell them to focus on, and what mistake should they avoid at all costs?
Avoid the bright, shiny object. There's no shortcut to smart, as I said earlier. I'm more equipped to talk about the growing of a law practice. And I've gone through various phases of my practice. The back of my business card, when I use it, and you actually have it, says, when you see a fork in the road, take it. I have made strategic pivots through the years, I have also, very honestly, at times targeted or met influencers in the industry that I felt I could help, that I liked, and were good networking sources for me. And many of them I've never billed a dime, because that loyalty, that friendship, and that relationship has spawned 1,000 times what they could have built.
Right.
So I became very strategic in who I worked with, how visible I was, what my reputation is, being clear about my expertise, and being selective in who I worked with.
Yes, very important.
Really important, particularly on the lawyering side. The money's not worth it.
Yeah, your clients can drag you down. The wrong client can drag you down.
And it's not worth the aggravation.
Right.
Number one. I also really like what I do. And I like to work with dynamic clients that are constantly building, and who are also open to listening and taking my advice. I have clients, I have one particular client that we've talked every Monday for the last 15 years. And I know what his pressure points are, and he knows I'm gonna give him, be a straight shooter. And I have a lot of clients like that. So loyalty is really important.
Yeah.
Look, I'll be honest. There were strategic retentions that I've had through the years that I knew would open the door to insane other opportunities. And my way of saying I'm always say thank you. And there are several very successful marketers I've never billed a nickel. Never to build, and I never will. You have to invest in the work.
Peter,
I will bill you.
I know, of course, and I expect you to.
I'm teasing.
Peter, I am so appreciative and so honored to have met you, and this was such a valuable podcast. I'm telling you right now, everybody, this was fantastic. So, for anyone who wants to, sorry, I'm getting these calls. For anyone who wants to learn more about your work and connect with you, where should they go? How should they get in touch with you?
Really simple. Pete, email me, phoppenfeld@gmail.com, PHOPPENFELD@gmail. I'll respond to any and all emails. My webpage is peterhoppenfeld.com.
All right, buddy.
Glad to talk.
Well, we're meeting next week to see how we can work together.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, Tom.
Me too, buddy. Well, thank you so much for being here. And so this has been Peter and Tom on the World of Marketing. Thanks for everybody for listening in or watching this. It's been a pleasure, Peter.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Hang on.